Picture this. You walk into your backyard on a Saturday morning. Sun's out. Grass is getting long. You grab the gas can, tip it into your mower, and nothing comes out. Again. You think, did I forget to refill it? Maybe you used more than you thought. You shrug it off, buy more gas, mow the lawn, but then it happens again, and again. And slowly, you start doing the math. A 1-quart tank, a 5-gallon can. Something doesn't add up. That's when the suspicion starts to creep in. What if it's not your math that's wrong? Now, before we get into what happened, I want you to understand something about this story. This isn't just about gas. It's about the quiet, simmering frustration of knowing someone is taking advantage of you, but not being able to prove it. That particular kind of helplessness that makes you feel stupid, like you're the problem for even suspecting someone. Most people in this situation would have just complained to their spouse, maybe knocked on the neighbor's door and asked an awkward question, and gotten a flat denial, and that would have been the end of it. But not this guy. This guy decided to make absolutely sure. And then, once he was sure, he didn't get angry. He got creative. This happened back in the early 2000s, before Ring doorbells, before cheap Wi-Fi cameras, before any of the surveillance tech we just take for granted today. So our guy, let's call him OP, starts noticing the pattern. He has a 5-gallon gas can in his backyard, stored on the patio for his lawnmower. Normal thing. Totally normal. The problem is, every single time he goes to mow the lawn, the can is nearly empty, and his mower has a 1-quart tank. Basic math says that can should last him months. It's not lasting months. OP is a methodical guy. He doesn't jump to conclusions. He starts paying attention to when the can seems to drain. He looks around. He notices his neighbor. Now, there's a dynamic here that's important. This wasn't just any neighbor. This guy had a reputation on the street. The kind of person where, once you knew what he was capable of, nothing surprised you. But we'll get to that. For now, OP just has a suspicion. And a suspicion isn't proof. So he does something resourceful. He takes a webcam. This is 2000s era, the kind you'd plug into a laptop for video calls. And he sets it up with motion detection software, points it at the backyard, leaves the gas can right where it always sits. Then he leaves the house. 5 minutes later, 5 minutes. His neighbor walks into his backyard, picks up the gas can, and walks away with it. 5 minutes. The guy didn't even wait to make sure OP was actually gone. That's how comfortable he'd gotten. That's how long this had been going on. OP watches the footage. He has his answer. Now he just needs to decide what to do with it. Here's where lesser people make their mistake. Confrontation feels satisfying in the moment. You knock on the door. You say, "I saw you on camera." The neighbor denies it, or apologizes, or gets aggressive. And suddenly it's a neighborhood war. He knows you know he knows. And nothing actually changes. OP takes a different approach. He says nothing. He acts completely normal. And over the next week, every single time he uses the bathroom, he doesn't flush. He adds it to the gas can. Let that settle in. A full week. Top it off a little at a time. Let the gasoline scent, still there, still clinging to the walls of the can, mask what's now mostly not gasoline. The can looks full. It even smells right if you're not paying close attention. And if you're a guy who's been getting away with stealing for weeks, you're probably not paying close attention. OP is patient. He waits until the can is good and full of his very personal contribution. And then he sets the trap. He makes a show of it. Walks out to his car in the driveway. Checks the oil. Checks the fluids. Makes a visible production of looking like he's preparing for a trip. He packs a few bags, puts them in the trunk. He even makes eye contact with the neighbor. Waves, casual, friendly. "Hey, I'm heading out of town for a while." Then he drives away. He drives around the block, parks a couple streets over, waits about an hour. Then, carefully, quietly, he comes back. And what he sees when he pulls onto his street is one of the most satisfying images in the history of petty justice. His neighbor is in his front yard, pulling the starter cord on his lawnmower. Over and over and over. The kind of pulling where you're putting your whole back into it, where you can see the frustration in every single motion. The neighbor is going red in the face. Actually red, like a cartoon character, cursing at the mower, yanking that cord like it personally insulted his mother. The mower is not starting. Funnily enough, engines don't run great on a mixture of gasoline and human waste. That's just basic chemistry. OP watches this. He doesn't say a word. He goes inside. But the story isn't over. Because the neighbor, apparently deciding the mower is the mower's problem and not the fuel's problem, needs to be somewhere. So he gets in his car, makes it a couple of blocks. The car dies, stops, right there in the middle of the street, a couple blocks from home. Because the neighbor hadn't just stolen gas for his mower, he'd been putting it in his car too. OP goes out to check the patio. The gas can is empty. Every drop. Now here's where the story gets a second layer, because OP mentions something almost casually. This neighbor wasn't just a thief. He was, by all accounts, a genuinely awful person. The gas was just the most visible thing, the thing OP could prove. But there was more to the picture. At some point, through the grapevine, through whatever sources you accumulate when you've been paying attention to someone, OP finds out something interesting. His neighbor had outstanding arrest warrants. Active warrants. The kind where law enforcement would very much like to know where this person is. Most people, hearing this, would maybe mention it to someone. File it away. OP had one more card to play. He signs his neighbor up for the local sheriff's ride-along program. For those who don't know, ride-along programs are where civilians apply to spend a shift in a police car, accompanying an officer on their rounds. You submit your name, your address, your information, and when you apply, they run your background. They always run your background. OP didn't make a call, didn't file a report, didn't point a finger or get... Here's what I love about this story. At every point, OP had options that would have felt good in the short term. He could have confronted the neighbor, could have yelled, could have called the cops the moment he saw the footage. Instead, he was patient. He was methodical. He let the neighbor's own greed do most of the work. The neighbor didn't just steal gas. He stole a carefully prepared trap, and he took every drop of it. In his mower, in his car, gone. There's something almost elegant about that. The punishment fit the crime perfectly because it came from the crime. The neighbor's own behavior, his own routine, his own assumption that he was untouchable. Those were the things that burned him. And the ride-along move at the end? That's not rage. That's not even revenge in the traditional sense. That's just closing a loop. Tying up a loose end with the neatest bow imaginable. Sometimes the best justice is the kind where you don't have to do very much at all. You just make sure the right information ends up in the right place, and let the universe handle the rest.